Hi everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey,
How are you guys doing?
great, Akansha. Good
Great.
morning.
Good morning, Anju. How are you?
Good, Akansha.
Okay. Today we are just going to do the remaining of the T cell from kind of a laid back session, the T cell from the Brentwood. So we'll be completing the ATLL, Shizari, T prolymphocytic, hepatosplenic, aggressive, and gymno, and aplastic peripheral T cell lymphoma. So all of these we are doing from Brentwood. Starting tomorrow onwards, we are going to do the cases for the T cell, and the cases are already in the drive. Raji has placed them in the drive, and we can start from tomorrow. All right. So the T cell express that we had yesterday. Did anything go into? Were you there, Anju? Did anything go into your minds, or it was too fast?
Yes, Dr. Akansha, I didn't. Can you repeat the again?
I'm saying the T cell express that we had yesterday. Was it too fast, or was it?
No, Akansha. I just went in from the ACE path, that book I revised again, no? So whatever points you were telling, no, I just highlighted it. So I was able to understand again.
Okay,
it was good.
Okay, cool. So today was more of the same thing, just from the Brentwood. And all right. So ATLL, what we remember from ATL, let's quickly go over nutshell again, so that we kind of remind ourselves what we read yesterday in the nutshell. So quickly reminding ourselves. So T lymphoblastic leukemia lymphoma, TDT positive, cytoplasmic CD3 positive, CD4, CD8 double positive or negative, CD7 positive, variable CD2, surface CD3, 5, CD34, 10, 99, 1A, and 45. For the ETP ALL, three things will be negative, CD1A, 8, and 5. And positive for cytoplasmic CD3, CD7, some myeloid and stem cell markers, 34, 117, HLA-DR, 13, 33, 11B, and 65. T prolymphocytic, CD4, this is a CD4 lymphoma, so CD4 in most cases. However, if it is CD4, CD8 double positive, then think of prolymphocytic, and it's kind of clinching towards the diagnosis. And then the T cell antigens 2, 3, 5, 7, the prolymphocytic important is CD52 and TCL1, and we saw that yesterday. Negative for TDT and CD1A, it is the later on stages than when the TDT and 1A comes. And then TLGL positive for, it's a CD8 T cell, cytotoxic T cell lymphoma. So basically CD8, CD57, 16, cytotoxic markers, TI1, granzyme B, granzyme M, and then, wait, it is too small, I think. Yeah, granzyme B, granzyme M, and then TCR alpha beta. And dim or loss of expression of 5 and 7. So that's the LGL. And positive for 16, negative for 56. We read all of this yesterday. Coming to aggressive NK, so it will be having NK type immunophenotype, so CD2, cytoplasmic CD3, epsilon, CD15, 656, and cytotoxic markers will be negative for 57. ATLL will be more of CD4 positive, and then we remember CD25 in ATLL, so CD4, CD2, 5, 3, and 2, 3, and 5, and 25, and then negative for CD7 downregulation, and this is a CD8 negative. TCR alpha beta rearranged, and then external NKT will be either NK phenotype, so it will be CD56 positive, surface CD3 negative, and T cell phenotype, which will be 56 negative and CD3 positive. Otherwise, the NK markers will be there, so cytoplasmic CD3 epsilon and cytotoxic markers, perforin TIN and granzyme B. And the negative for 4, 5, and 8, so 4 and 8 double negative and 57 negative. Intestinal T-cell lymphoma, we remember that 8 and 56 negative in case of ETL and 8 and 56 positive in case of METL and the others as well. And then subcutaneous panniculitis like alpha beta, cytotoxic T-cells, so cytotoxic markers will be there. And that's it. And then mycosis fungoides and Shizari syndrome both will have similar immunophenotype. CD4 positive lymphoma, it is CD8 negative, downregulation of CD7. And then cytotoxic CD8 in some phenotype, but usually it is CD4. And then PD1 is another marker that we have to remember. Negative for CD26 is another important thing that we have to remember. And hepatosplenic is more of CD8 lymphoma. It's a gamma delta lymphoma, and this is one of the gamma deltas which is unusual, and the sinusoidal pattern, if you remember. And then this will be TIA1, granzyme M, gamma delta, and all those. So that's that. ALCL, sorry, not this is not. Then PTCL is again another CD4 positive with the downregulation of 5 and 7. Angioimmunoblastic T cell will have the T follicular helper markers. So we do have PD1 279, CD279 by flow, and then CD10. And though CD10 is kind of non-specific, can be seen in the other areas as well, some reactive conditions too. And then the others are CXCL13, BCL6 ICOS, which can be done by immunohistochemistry. And then the T cell markers 2, 3, 4, 5. The background B cells will be ABV positive, and that's that. Follicular T cell lymphoma will be similar in immunophenotype to AITL because it is also T follicular helper cell in origin, and immunophenotype is similar to AITL. And then ALCL, CD30, you have to remember, ALK positive will be ALK positive, and then the ALK positive is 2,5 NPM ALK fusion. And then over here, it's variable for, so ALK in, so basically the T cell markers, cytotoxic markers, CD25 can be positive, and then a variable 38, 45 EMA, and that's it. And then ALK negative will be similar to ALK positive, CD30, that's the most important one, and the T cell markers, cytotoxic markers, and so forth. And then breast implant associated is another ALCL, which is ALK negative. So this was a quick revision of our nutshell. And coming to ATLL. So ATLL, we know that it is in Japanese population, like in the HTLV endemic area. So Japanese population and Caribbeans and so forth. So now they are presenting with a 37-year-old Japanese man. And on examination, he has mild generalized lymphadenopathy, CBC, WBC of 11, mild normocytic anemia, and irregular convoluted nuclear contour, so that floret or flower cells, that's typical, and then HTLV1 positive. So then they have given the ATLL. So for ATLL, we have to remember it is a CD4 positive, CD25 positive with downregulation of 7. So that's what we see over here. So this is a CD3 positive, CD56 negative. So if you see this blue, like the purple population that is there, is CD56 positive and cytoplasmic CD3 negative. So what do you think that population is? It is CD2 positive, 56 positive, CD3 negative.
NK cells.
Yes. So that's NK cell population. And then this abnormal population is in aqua, that is CD3 positive, 56 negative. This population has a downregulation of CD7. It's a CD4 lymphoma. So basically CD4 is positive, CD8 is negative. And then CD25, another important marker for ATLL. So that's what I have been stressing, and CD30 negative. So that's what they have said over here. Flow cytometry demonstrating expanded population of abnormal T cells comprising 15% of the WBC, expressing CD4, slightly decreased CD3 as well. So that's another thing, that the CD3 expression in ATLL is slightly less than the normal background T cells. Normal CD2 and bright CD5, and then abnormal cells are lacking CD7 and CD56. Abnormal cells are uniformly positive for 25, predominantly negative for 30. CD4 CD8 ratio is high, so it's a CD4 lymphoma. And then Normal background T cells are shown in red and green. Background NK cells are shown in dark blue, and flow cytometric findings in the context of the clinical are suggestive of ATLL. So ATLL is a T cell neoplasm associated with HTLV. ATLL most frequently presents with acute phase with circulating neoplastic cells, so those floret cells or flower cells. Organomegaly, hypercalcemia is another important thing that you have to remember for ATLL. And although chronic, and the others are chronic smoldering and lymphomatous presentation are the other presentation. Morphology of the neoplastic cells may vary, but cells are typically intermediate in size and prominent nuclear lobulations, leading to designation floret cell. This neoplasm is most frequently seen in the regions where HTLV is endemic: Japan, Caribbean, South America, and Central Africa. Among HTLV carriers in Japan, the cumulative index of ATLL is estimated to be 2 to 4%. ATLL's characteristic immunophenotype with combination of HTLV positive clinical setting will allow the diagnosis. So ATLL is a mature T cell neoplasm that typically express T cell antigens that will be 2, 3, and 5. And although CD3 is typically positive, this antigen is lower than normal mature T cells. So that's one of the points that you have to remember. As the neoplastic cells when mature, post-thymic T cells, so that CD1A and TDT will be negative, and CD7 will be usually downregulated. Neoplastic cells will be CD4 without CD8, although cases expressing CD4 or CD4 and CD8 have been described. And then CD25 strongly positive in majority of the cases. Although characteristic, the immunophenotype is not entirely specific and may be seen in other T cells and neoplasm. So what are the other CD45 positive? Sometimes that can be seen. So those are Sézary, PTCL, circulating PTCL, and P-prolymphocytic. We also saw at one of the angioimmunoblastic, I think that can be 25, like correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, so it's not entirely specific, but again, it's helpful when it is present and strong in majority of the cases it will be there. And then take home points, HTLV associated, endemic in HTLV areas. They will express CD4, CD25, loss of 7, and the variable expression of the other pan T cell markers, and HTLV confirmation is required for the diagnosis. Okay, so that's the ATLL. Coming to Sézary syndrome. So Sézary syndrome, another CD4 positive T cell lymphoma with down regulation of CD7, and that's that. So this is another one that can be CD25 positive, but again, CD25 is more for ATLL than anything else. So again, we have this T cell population aberrant that is in aqua, and you see that there is CD3, there is 2 and 5 downregulation of CD7. There is a subset that is positive for CD7, but most of the subset is downregulated. And then again, CD4 positive, CD8 negative. Again, the background cells, this purple cells are the NK cells with negative CD3, positive CD7, positive CD2. So those are your NK cells. So flow cytometry. So over here they have mentioned that 77-year-old woman. So this Sézary syndrome, 77-year-old woman, erythroderma. So erythroderma is like basically the Sézary is the stage 4 of mycosis fungoides, and sometimes like it can happen de novo as well. But it's like the generalized form with peripheral blood involvement and of those CD4 T cells, the cerebriform CD4 T cells. So over here they are saying that the WBC count was high, so that the Sézary cell count should be there, and then absolute lymphocytosis is there, and eosinophilia. And then in the flow they are saying flow cytometry demonstrates lymphoid cells with a typical T cell population seen in aqua, expressing CD4 with CD2, 3, and 5. CD7 is low to absent, and CD26 and 56 are negative as well. So 26 is one of the important ones over here as well. And of note, CD4 CD8 ratio is very high, and the background T cells are in red and green over here. In the background, there's some green over here as well, and these red and green over here are the polyclonal cells, and background NK cells are in dark blue. And then combined clinical morphologic and immunophenotypic data was consistent with Sézary. So Sézary is variant of cutaneous T cell lymphoma characterized by a combination of peripheral blood involvement, erythroderma, and generalized lymphadenopathy. According to 2008 World WHO classification, one or more of the following criteria will be required. So that's we read yesterday in our book as well, and we are reading this again. At least 1,000 abnormal cells per cubic millimeter in circulation. Expanded population of CD4 T cells resulting in CD4 to CD8 ratio of more than 10. Loss of one or more T cell antigens. So that's a definition of either one of these will be suggestive of Sézary syndrome. Accounts for less than 5% of CTCL and relatively poor prognosis. Sézary syndrome shares immunophenotypic features with mycosis fungoides, a relatively indolent disorder that represents the most common CTCL. Around 50% of the lymphomas originating in the CCN are mycosis fungoides. Therefore, the two are considered together. However, emerging data are suggesting that primary Sézary syndrome and mycosis fungoides may originate from different T cell subpopulations, while Sézary syndrome deriving from central memory T cells and mycosis fungoides originating from skin resident effector memory T cell. So that's that. Sézary syndrome is mature T cell neoplasm that typically expresses. So this is again CD4 neoplasm. Pan T cell antigens will be there, 235, and in majority, greater than 90% of the cases, aberrant expression of the markers. So basically, downregulation of CD7 showing diminished expression in majority of the cases, approaching to 80%. And downregulation of 7 should be interpreted with caution, they are saying, because it can be seen in other reactive conditions as well. Because so they are saying CD4 positive T cells with decreased CD7 can be seen in normal peripheral blood samples, frequently skin in the skin biopsies with reactive dermatosis. And the T cell subset is thought to represent normal memory T cell. Other T cell antigens that may show decrease will be 2, 3, occasionally 4, or sometimes increase of occasionally 5. So that's that. And then while expressed at variable levels on normal CD4 T cells, CD26 is another typical negative marker for Sézary. So that's another marker that is negative in Sézary syndrome. Thus, incorporation of this marker may assist in identifying the abnormal population. One additional marker that has been described in Sézary syndrome is 158K and the KIR MHC receptors. So they are positive in here. And while expression of CD158K has been described in majority of cases of typical Sézary, it is typically absent. Let me see, there is someone who is not able to log in. Oh. Okay. Okay. So while expression of CD158 has been described in majority of the cases of Sézary syndrome, it is typically absent on normal CD4 subsets. So normal CD4 subsets will be negative for CD158. However, the Sézary syndrome will be positive for CD158. So that's something that we have to remember. Let me mute someone else. Okay. And then, so basically we read that CD4 T cell lymphoma, CD7 loss, like downregulation, and then however that should be interpreted with caution. There can be decreased 2, 3, 4 and increased CD5. CD26 will be negative, and then this another KIR receptor marker, that is CD158, will be positive in case of Sézary, but will be negative in case of typical normal CD4 subsets. And then alpha beta, so basically T cell receptor V beta expression analysis will be helping in detecting clonality. Overall, the data suggests a multifaceted approach to diagnosis of Sézary syndrome. Flow cytometry should include assessment of multiple T cell aberrant markers for aberrant antigen expression rather than reliance on the presence or absence of a single marker. Additionally, flow cytometry should be considered in conjunction with clinical and morphologic data. Demonstration of clonality by flow cytometry or molecular studies may be considered as well. Finally, it should be noted that immunophenotype in Sézary syndrome is not specific. Therefore, correlation with the clinical findings, such as peripheral blood involvement by systemic T cell neoplasm, should be excluded, like PTCL should be excluded. Then Sézary syndrome is a neoplasm of mature T cells expressing pan T cell markers. So we saw that 2, 3, 4, 5, variable loss of 7. And again, there can be loss of 2, 3, and 5. There can 2, 3, and there can be overexpression of 5 as well, or a bright 5. And then we read that 26 will be negative, 158K will be positive, and then the clonality will be important. So basically T receptor V beta repertoire. So that's that. Coming to T prolymphocytic leukemia. So prolymphocytic is another. So over here, prolymphocytic, usually it is CD4 positive, but then CD4 and CD8 double positive. They are kind of more towards specificity of the prolymphocytic. If you have 4 and 8 double positive, then you have to think of prolymphocytic. So over here they have shown 4 and 8 lymphoma, that is 2 and 5. 5 is bright, and then 3 and 7, that is positive as well. So that's that. And then we have the two markers, CD52, TCL1, that we published in our book. It was a nice case that I had, but they don't have in this book. But then a very high WBC count. So that's something that we have to remember. So over here they are mentioning that 63-year-old. Let me mute. 63-year-old man with headache, double vision, retinal hemorrhages because of all these high WBC count, and white blood cells are primarily lymphoid cells with prominent nucleoli, and portion of peripheral blood is submitted for flow cytometry. So then they have shown that they are saying abnormal population of aberrant T cells shown in ECHOA that express normal levels of 2, 3, and 7, slightly increased 5. Abnormal cells express both CD4 and CD8. The abnormal cells are negative for TDT, and cytogenetics were performed on concurrent specimen and demonstrated a complex karyotype with inversion of 14. So inversion of 14 has to be remembered in case of T prolymphocytic. And then the overall everything is diagnostic. So T prolymphocytic leukemia is affecting adults, median age of 65. So that's what they had, 63-year-old man over there. And then extremely high, rapidly rising WBC count. So that's T prolymphocytic for you, more than 100,000 per microliter. And maybe associated with skin changes, mild adenopathies, splenomegaly, effusions. Flow cytometry is usual tool in differentiating TPLL from other mature leukemias. T prolymphocytic leukemia is a neoplasm of mature T cells that expresses pan T cell marker. So 2, 3, 5, and 7 aberrant pan T cell markers can be seen. Most commonly positive for CD4 without CD8, as I said, and 25% both CD4 and CD8, which will be more specific, and occasionally CD8 positive and CD4 negative cases. And then neoplasm of mature T cell, 45 is generally positive. However, loss of 45 has been observed in the rare cases as well. So that's something that we can remember too. In such cases, differentiation from an immature T cell population, T cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia, is critical and accomplished by demonstrating the negativity for TDT 34 and or 1A in the population of interest. So that's that. So over here they have the T prolymphocytic leukemia. So though the prolymphocytic, it should be more of CD4 positive, CD8 negative, but as in this one, there's a, they are showing this a diagnosis and a relapsed case. So diagnostic case was CD4 positive and variable for CD8. The subset, small subset is positive, but the majority of the subset is negative. But then on relapse, the same subset became kind of downregulated for CD4, kind of dim to negative, and then the CD8 became brightly positive and uniformly positive. So they can change the immunophenotype with the treatment. That's what the point of this this figure is. So upper panel shows patient at diagnosis, while the lower panel shows patients at relapse. At diagnosis, abnormal cells are predominantly CD4 with variable co-expression of CD8, while at relapse, the abnormal cells are predominantly CD8, low-level co-expression of CD4. The abnormal population harbored the same T cell clone at both time points. So that's important. The change in immunophenotype in this case was accompanied by acceleration of the disease. In this, there was an increase in lymphocyte doubling time and refractiveness to the therapy. So then they are showing a CD45 negative subset. So that's one of the things that they have mentioned that can happen. So over here, so all plots show all WBC. This is a subset that they are talking about, CD4, CD8 positive, but this is a CD45 negative subset. And in such cases, you have to rule out T lymphoblastic leukemia by CD34 and TDT and CD1A and so forth. So that, let's see what they are saying. All plots show all WBC. The cases of relapsed pre-prolymphocytic leukemia shows 3 distinct abnormal subsets. So the subset shown is in red, expressed 45, and CD4 without CD8. So over here, CD4 without CD8. The subset shown in aqua was double positive for A4 and 8 without 45. And the subset shown in purple, so again over here it's blue, the cyan and purple both are together over here, so it is also CD45 negative. So subset shown in blue, in purple, expressed CD8 without CD4 or CD45. Of the interest at diagnosis, the CD45 cells, negative cells, were minor component of the neoplasm, while in the relapsed sample, it became the CD45 negative components predominant. So that's important because then you have these 3 specific components of the same neoplasm, and like they are saying that one of the component is like 2 components are CD45 negative, one of the component is CD5 positive, and then the red component is CD4 positive, the purple component is CD8 positive, the cyan component is both positive. However, at the time of diagnosis, this CD45 negative subset was very small, and then in the relapse, however, this is a subset which was resistant to treatment and it became persistent. So, and then it increased as well. So that's what they are showing here. And then within the differential diagnosis of TPLL are other mature lymphoid neoplasms presenting in leukemic phase. In majority of the cases, differentiation of TPLL and LGL is easily accompanied by a combination of morphology and immunophenotype. Rare cases of TLGL that express both 4 and 8 has been described, may lead to confusion because among mature T cell, co-expression of 4 and 8 is more common in TPLL. Unusual 4 and 8 double positive TLGL will have morphology of LGL. So that's one thing that will clinch. And typically they will express the CD57, that the LGL marker. They will also express CD56 and allowing the differentiation from TPLL. Both Sézary syndrome and adult ATLL are typically positive for CD4, similar to majority of the cases of TPLL. TPLL typically has much higher WBC count. So that's something that will clinch the diagnosis here. And then in addition, in contrast to Sézary, TPLL will be typically positive for CD7. In contrast to ATLL, the TPLL will be typically positive for CD7 again and without CD25. So the positivities for CD7 is kind of important in case of TPLL. And then also in differential diagnosis, when considering a TPLL, is circulating PTCL. And the immunophenotype of TPLL shows some overlap with the PTCL, although aberrant expression of pan T cell marker is more common in PTCL. So aberrant expression of the pan T cell marker, which will be more commonly seen in PTCL as compared to TPLL. Clinical correlation will be helpful in distinguishing these entities. In addition, genetic studies are helpful in separating TPLL from other T cell neoplasms, as TPLL is characteristically associated with complex karyotype, including rearrangement involving TCL1 gene. So that's what I was saying on chromosome 14. So that's chromosome 14, typically inversion 14. This is something that you have to remember for TPLL, which places TCL1 under the control of TCR receptor alpha beta promoter enhancer, leading to TCL1 overexpression. The evaluation of TCL1 rearrangement by cytogenetics is recommended for confirmation in all cases of suspected TPLL. TCL1 overexpression, IHC has also been there. So there is also an IHC for TCL1. So then T prolymphocytic leukemia is mature T cell lymphoma, leukemia composed of T cells with variable loss of pan T cell antigens, will express CD4 alone usually, then double positive cases have been identified and CD8 alone. Co-expression of 4 and 8 is more commonly associated with TPLL than the others. And then TPLL presents very high peripheral blood WBC count. So that's something that you have to remember. Poor prognosis overall. And TPLL is characteristically associated with complex karyotype and then chromosome 14 rearrangements and involving the TCL1 locus. And then this will be seen on flow cytometry. This will be seen on immunohistochemistry. And FISH for TCL1 will be used for definitive confirmation. So that's the TPLL for you. Coming for hepatosplenic. So hepatosplenic T cell lymphoma, it is a CD8 positive, cytotoxic gamma delta CD56 positive lymphoma. There can be downregulation of 5, and it's more of gamma delta. So that's what they are showing in this flow cytometry. So basically 2, 3 positive, and CD57, that's CD7 that's positive, but 5 is downregulated. And then CD8, a little bit variable, but a lot of like a major subset is still positive for CD8, negative for CD4. And however, the CD4, CD8 negative subsets have been noted as well more very often. And then CD56 is positive, 16 will be negative in these cases, 30 will be negative in these cases, and then gamma delta. So over here, they are showing a 23-year-old man with ulcerative colitis, and usual state of health when routine lab showed anemia and thrombocytopenia. The patient was told to return clinic three week for follow-up testing. Prior to this return, the clinic, the patient noted rash on the extremities, decrease in appetite, and sensation of abdominal distension and subjective fever. The anemia and thrombocytopenia is noted to be persistent when the patient returns to the clinic, and rash represents petechia. The bone marrow biopsy is performed, flow is done. So flow, white blood cells are shown in first panel with lymphocytes shown in all the other panels. And a population of lymphocyte is noted that is highlighted in aqua that expresses CD3 and CD2 with variably decreased CD7 and also CD5. CD56 is strongly uniformly positive. Abnormal cells have low variable CD8 but without CD4. And CD5 is absent in the cells of interest, as is CD30. The abnormal population is gamma delta and negative for alpha beta T cell receptor. The combined clinical and immunophenotypic findings are hepatosplenic. So hepatosplenic is a rare aggressive T cell neoplasm occurring predominantly in young males, characterized by hepatosplenomegaly, B symptoms, and cytopenias, most commonly thrombocytopenia. And as the name suggests, it is hepatosplenic. It is not, there will not be a significant lymphadenopathy here. And then hepatosplenic shows an association with chronic immunosuppression, approximately 20% of the cases. Flow cytometry plays a critical role in the diagnosis of this entity and distinguishing from the other T cell neoplasms. So hepatosplenic is neoplasm characteristically composed of gamma delta T cells. Although alpha beta has been reported, but majority of them are gamma delta. Abnormal cells also express so T cell markers 2, 3, variable loss of 7. CD5 is frequently absent, although low levels has been described. These populations frequently express 56, 57 will be absent. And then that's what I was saying, that 4 and 8 are usually both absent. So that's something, so 5 absent, 4 and 8 absent, and 57 absent, 56 present, 56 is positive. So, and then low level CD8, however, can be seen in subset of cases. And by immunohistochemistry, these neoplasms demonstrate inactive cytotoxic profiles, so basically expression of CIA1 without perforin or granzyme B. That's that. Other T cell lymphoma expressing gamma delta include primary subcutaneous T cell lymphoma, provisional entity, and gamma delta expressing T cell LGL. So subcutaneous and gamma delta LGLs, though the LGL will be alpha beta, but subcutaneous and gamma delta, the gamma delta type of LGL can be in the differential. The former consideration also has a poor prognosis and similar immunophenotype as seen in hepatosplenic. However, the two entities can be generally distinguished on the clinical grounds, in particular by the sites of involvement. So obviously, like subcutaneous T cell lymphoma will be in the subcutaneous, and hepatosplenic will be in the liver and spleen. The later may be more difficult to distinguish from, so now coming to LGL, will be more difficult to distinguish from hepatosplenic, as the two share immunophenotypic features and sites of involvement. However, by flow cytometry, hepatosplenic is typically negative for CD57, while LGL will be positive for CD57. Furthermore, hepatosplenic is more commonly negative for CD5, while LGL is more commonly shows decreased but not absent CD5. So again, hepatosplenic 4 and 8 absent, 5 absent, 57 absent, 56 present. That's your hepatosplenic. And occasionally peripheral T cell lymphoma, not otherwise specified, may express the gamma delta. However, clinical presentation will be different. Now, hepatosplenic is a mature T cell neoplasm, gamma delta, which typically expresses gamma delta T cell receptor, 2, 3, variable 56, and loss of 5, variable loss of 7. And then must be differentiated from relatively indolent gamma delta TLGL, typically can be done with the CD57 expression on the LGL. So that's your hepatosplenic. Coming to aggressive NK, so again, NK, it will be more of NK type phenotype, and 16, 56. So they are showing the 16 negative population. However, it should be positive for 16 at in some cases as well. They are saying more frequently positive for 16 in 75% of the cases. And then so 16, 56 usually positive, and then they are saying down regulation of some antigens. So basically, actually the CD3 is not present in the NK cells then by themselves, right? So CD3 is absent, and then CD7 is present, CD2 is present, CD5 is absent, and CD38, this one is showing CD38. I don't know the significance of CD38 in case of aggressive NK, but that's that. So over here, they are saying that scenario 22-year-old woman present to primary care, fever, night sweats, progressively worsening fatigue, presumed to have flu, but returning with increased abdominal girth, early satiety, and noted to have splenomegaly on the exam. Laboratory findings demonstrate mild pancytopenia, ferritin of more than 100,000. A bone marrow biopsy and aspiration is performed. Aspirate shows evidence of hemophagocytosis, an abnormal population of mononuclear cells. And so this is the one that has more of angiodestruction and angiocentric kind of involvement. So over here, they are saying flow cytometry demonstrating expanded population of aqua. So this is important. So there is a like increased forward scatter and side scatter. So this aggressive NK cell leukemia, we know that they are larger in size. The population expressing bright CD45, 2, 7, 38, and 56. CD3 and CD5 are negative, and CD16 and both CD4 and 8 are negative. In addition to KI receptors, so basically CD158A, B, and E were all negative in the cells of interest, suggesting clonality. Of note, Eber stain was performed in bone marrow core biopsy, demonstrating uniform nuclear positivity in the abnormal cells. Combined findings are diagnostic of aggressive NK. So aggressive NK, so the extranodal NK nasal type and aggressive NK will be similar, and are EBV associated neoplasms, and derived from MK cells seen most commonly in the Asian population, with former also described at higher incidence in Native Americans. Aggressive NK is rare neoplasm involving the blood, marrow, and spleen, and variable infiltration of the organs that is associated with dismal overall survival. NK T cell lymphoma nasal type is external T cell lymphoma with frequent involvement of the upper aerodigestive tract with associated necrosis and angiodestruction, and notable on morphology. Prognosis of NK T cell is variable, with some patients responding to therapy, while others, particularly those with disseminated disease, fare poorly. Relationship between NK T cell nasal type and aggressive T cell is not entirely clear, and given the differences in the genetic changes characteristically identified on each of these entities, the two disorders may represent unrelated neoplasms. However, immunophenotypic, there will be similar, and flow cytometry of both these entities will be similar. So NK T cell neoplasms composed of neoplastic cells with immunophenotypic compatible with NK. So these will be 2 positive, 56 positive, variable 7, absence of 3, absence of 5. And aggressive NK is more frequently positive for 16 than the extranodal NK T cell lymphoma. NK T cell neoplasms are negative for CD4 and 8, and the T cell receptor alpha, beta, or gamma delta. Both these entities may show either clonal expression of KIR or absence of KIR expression, completely suggesting clonality. So that's that. And so basically they are saying that NKT cell and aggressive NK is basically similar immunophenotype, and so basically because of NK there will be loss of CD, like there will be no expression of CD3, not loss, no expression of CD3, no expression of CD5. Variable for CD7, 56, 16 positive and 2 positive. And the external NK T cell, they're saying that 4 and 8 will be negative, and TCR, obviously the both the cases, the TCR should be negative, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, those are NK cells neoplasm. And the NK cell markers like KIR receptors will be either positive clonal expression of KIR receptors or complete absence of KIR receptors, suggesting clonality. And then immunohistochemistry is useful in confirming the suspected diagnosis of NKT. These neoplasm typically express epsilon, so that we know the NKT cell are having epsilon cytoplasmic CD3, but not surface CD3, and therefore highlighted by immunohistochemical stains. So this epsilon chain can be still highlighted by the IHC, recognizing epsilon chain. These neoplasm almost uniformly positive for EBV as assessed by EBER. So this EBER is important in aggressive NK. As we said, this is a strong association with EBV. And in addition, these neoplasms express cytotoxic molecules, including TI1, granzyme, and perforin. Chronic NK cell lymphocytosis and T cell neoplasms are within diagnosis for NK T cell neoplasms. Although some overlap is seen in immunophenotype and sometimes morphology, distinction of aggressive NK and chronic NK LPD can be usually accomplished on the basis of clinical grounds. Demonstration of hallmark of T cell differentiation, including expression of surface CD3, expression of alpha beta or gamma delta T cell receptor, demonstration of clonal T cell gene rearrangement would warrant the further consideration of T cell lymphoma rather than NK T cell. And in particular, if no involvement of upper airway digestive tract is seen, over here as well. Another entity to consider is differential diagnosis, maybe EBV positive T LPD of the childhood. And then these may be difficult to distinguish from NKT cell, but generally have true T phenotype and expression of surface CD3 will be there. And there will be TCR gene rearrangements. And then, so aggressive NK, external NK are neoplasm derived from NK, expressing CD2, 56, variable 7, no 5, and no surface CD3. Immunohistochemistry is useful adjunct in establishing this diagnosis because neoplastic cells typically express epsilon chain of CD3 in the cytoplasm with expression of cytotoxic molecules and EBER. Important considerations in differential diagnosis include chronic NK, T cell lymphoma, and T cell EBV positive LPD. So that's that. Coming to angioimmunoblastic. So again, angioimmunoblastic is another CD4 T cell lymphoma. So over here you see the CD4 positive and CD8 is kind of dim, positive or dim negative actually. So CD4 positive T cell lymphoma, and as I said that AITL is T follicular helper markers. So PD1 if present in the lab, it will be very helpful. And they are showing that there is downregulation of CD3 over here. CD5 is there, brightly expressing, and CD2 is there. There's downregulation of CD7. And then variable CD30 that can be seen, and CD56 is negative. The CD56 positive cells that you are seeing over here might be the NK cells that are normal NK cells. So over here, the scenario they are giving is 75-year-old woman presenting primary care with fatigue and night sweats and recent onset of pruritus. On exam, the patient is noted to have generalized adenopathy and rash. So we know that there is kind of vascular, the high endothelial venules that are proliferated in the angioimmunoblastic T cell. So there is more of pruritus, adenopathy, rash that is seen in these cases. All panels except that of the lower right corner are all the white blood cells. The panel on the lower right corner is the B cell population. Now, normal T cell are highlighted in red or green. So these are the normal T cells on the basis of expression of CD4 and CD8. An abnormal T cell population highlighted in aqua. The abnormal population shows increased site scatter. So that angioimmunoblastic, we know that it is higher in site scatter and like larger cells, and strong expression of CD2, CD5 without CD3 surface or CD7, and abnormal cells are expressing CD4 without CD8. Variable CD30 is present at low levels, which lack significant CD56. And CD10 is expressed by less than 5% of the cells of interest. So that is not shown. Why they are talking about CD10? Because that's another T follicular helper marker. And then lower right panel shows B cells of interest. Unusual B cell population comprising of less than 5% is noted that lacks the surface, and this yellow population lacks the surface and cytoplasmic light chains. Concurrent morphology showed consistent with AITL, and morphological analysis was performed. There was a large T cell clone and also a small B cell clone in a polyclonal background. So AITL is neoplasm of mature T cell, commonly occurring primarily in older adults, accounting for approximately 10 to 15% of the T cell lymphomas. So it's not really uncommon. It is seen like it's after PTCL. They are the more common ones, and mycosis fungoides being the most common in the skin. Definitive diagnosis can be difficult on the basis of morphology, particular in cases identified early with partial lymph node involvement. Multiparametric flow cytometry can provide clinical information establishing the diagnosis, as immunophenotypically abnormal T cells are seen in 94 to 96% of the cases. AITL, mature T cell neoplasm, neoplastic cells is, again, this is a CD4 helper T cell neoplasm. So AITL is composed of T cells typically expressing 2 and 5 with CD4. And then CD3 and CD7 are often negative or partially lost. And expression of germinal center markers frequently described. So basically on flow cytometry, CD10 is described to be positive in most cases. That's what I was coming to. CD10 is the another flow, follicular helper T cell marker. However, CD10 may be expressed only in minor subset of the cases. So they will be positive, but it will be only in the minor subset. And again, it is not specific. So furthermore, CD10 co-expression less commonly seen in the marrow. Expression of germinal center markers, so other germinal center markers, PD1, BCL6, biopsy, may be more robust than CD10 in detecting the neoplastic population. CD10 is uncommon in other T cell lymphomas, but has been described rarely in case of PTCL and not otherwise specified. So of note, CD10 on CD4 positive T cells is described also in the reactive lymphoid hyperplasia and reactive T cell present in the B cell lymphoma and normal peripheral blood. Therefore, the expression of CD10 in isolation should not be taken as an evidence of neoplasm. Similarly, loss of CD7 is commonly encountered in T cell populations, reactive populations, and should not be taken as evidence of neoplasia when present as a sole abnormality. So we saw that the CD4 follicular helper T cell marker, so basically it will be CD4 positive, expressing 2 and 5. There will be downregulation of CD3 and 7, which is usually negative. CD10 expression in minor subset of the cells can be there. And PDL1, BCL6 by immunohistochemistry. And however, CD10 positive, CD4 positive T cells are not entirely specific. They can be seen in the other conditions as well. Several features have may complicate detection of abnormal population of AITL because the neoplastic cell is often present in the background of the reactive cells. The neoplastic cells may present in relatively small percentage. The reactive T cells are more frequent than the neoplastic T cells in majority of cases, and that's why the CD4 to CD8 ratio is usually normal. Because the reactive T cells are more common. So basically, we know that the AITL has a reactive background. There will be reactive T cells, there will be B cells, there will be eosinophils, which is a very often one of the diagnostic clues as well. So again, so the reactive T cells make CD4, CD8 normal. Furthermore, surface CD3 is often absent. So that's why we have to really gate it very well. So surface CD3 is absent. Gating strategies that use the expression of surface CD3 to define T cells may exclude the neoplastic population. B cell clones have been described in association with AITL and may correspond to EBV, positive immunoblastic proliferation detectable by morphology. By flow cytometry, this may be recognized as increased CD38. So that's important over here. So this B cell clone, there will be a B cell clone, and then there will be an increase in CD38 positive plasma cells or immunoblast with or without light chain restriction. In some cases, this proliferation may evolve into overt B cell lymphoma. Therefore, evaluation of B cells is recommended during AITL. So over here, they are showing a secondary diffuse large B cell lymphoma that was CD38 positive and kappa lambda negative, CD20 that was downregulated over here as well. However, these are all CD19 positive T cells. And over here, this again the yellow population. So AITL with secondary diffuse large B cell lymphoma. All plots are CD19 positive B cells. The upper histograms A and B show abnormal B cell population 15.1. The population highlighted in yellow comprises less than 5% of the white blood cells, expressing CD19, which is not shown, and variable CD20 and 38 surface or cytoplasmic light chain expression. The lower histogram C and D show flow cytometry of enlarged lymph node from this patient 2 months post-transplant of her underlying T-cell lymphoma. In this specimen, the dominant population, nearly 80% of the white blood cells, is abnormal B-cell population with similar immunophenotype as seen in the upper panel. Concurrent morphology and specific specimen was diagnostic of DLBCL. The abnormal cells was positive for EBV. Previously identified T-cell clone was not present in this later specimen. So angioimmunoblastic T-cell lymphoma is T-cell lymphoma occurring predominantly in the older adults, characterized by proliferation of T cells thought to be derived from CD4 positive follicular T cells. These will be positive for 4, 2, and 5, absence of 3 and 7, and 10 on the subset. And then B-cell clones may be seen in patients with AITL and may evolve into B-cell lymphomas. So that's your AITL. We have 2 more to finish, and then we'll have to go. So ALCL. ALCL is another anaplastic large cell. So it's another CD4 positive. Over here, they are showing CD8 positive T cell like population. However, it's more commonly CD4, as I remember. Another thing, CD30. So again, CD30 will be bright, as you see. And there will be downregulation of 5 and 7. CD3 is also downregulated over here. There is a CD2 positive subset. 45 variable and high forward and side scatter. So we know ALCL by name anaplastic. So it's very anaplastic cells that are present in this with hallmark cells and so forth. So over here, it's a 25-year-old man. Emergency department. So it's a very aggressive neoplasm. Emergency department with fever, weakness, and epistaxis and night sweats. On initial, the patient was pancytopenic, and patient is noted to have extensive generalized lymphadenopathy, and lymph node biopsies performed. So then the flow cytometric lymph node biopsy, all plots viable cells, an expanded population of large cells, increased forward scatter and side scatter is shown in aqua that expresses CD2 without CD3. And CD5 or CD7. So all the downregulation of 3, 5, and 7. CD5 is variably decreased, and CD3 is 30 is strongly uniformly positive. Neither 4 nor 8 was expressed. So actually this 8 is also negative. And CD56 is negative as well. 56 is negative. Of note, concurrent immunohistochemistry demonstrated ALK1, nuclear and cytoplasmic staining pattern. Combined clinical morphologic and immunophenotypic findings are consistent with ALCL ALK positive. So ALCL is a neoplasm composed of large atypical cells expressing CD30, accounting for 2% of the non-Hodgkin's lymphomas. Approximately 50 to 80% of the cases of ALCL will be express anaplastic lymphoma kinase, that's ALK1. So usually they are ALK1 positive. ALK1 positive are separated as distinct entity now and associated with younger age, improved survival as compared to the ALK negative ones. Diagnosis of ALCL is classically included in combination of morphology and immunohistochemistry. However, several studies have established flow cytometry as establishing the diagnosis. Flow cytometry is particularly helpful in suggesting the diagnosis of FNA specimens in patients presenting with peripheral blood involvement. ALCL is mature T-cell neoplasm. Large abnormal cells will be co-expressing 30, 5, and 1 or more T-cell markers. 30, 45, and T-cell markers. As with diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, because of the cells of interest are characteristically quite large, the initial grading strategy is critical in identifying the abnormal population. ALCL is associated with variably increased forward and side scatter. And so basically it will not be in the lymphocyte gate. It will be very high forward and side scatter. Therefore, except for the exception with a small cell variant. The neoplastic cells are largely excluded from the typical lymphocyte gate as defined by forward and side scatter or CD45 versus side scatter. The neoplastic cells in ALCL generally have high forward scatter, overlap with the position of monocytes. So that's important. They overlap in the monocyte position, or even granulocytes on CD45 versus side scatter. If ALCL is suspected on basis of cytosine morphology, CD30 may also be utilized in combination with 45 forward and side scatter to identify the abnormal population. CD30 is typically uniformly positive in the neoplasm, although a small cell variant may show expression of this antigen only on the larger cells. Additionally, rare cases may be negative for CD30 by flow, but the IHC will be positive. So that's important. Therefore, CD30 should not be used in isolation to identify the abnormal population. So CD30 along with high forward scatter and side scatter along with the combination of CD45, all of these should be used. ALCL generally expresses one or more T cell markers, CD2 being commonly reported as positive, followed by CD3, 5, and 7. CD4 is commonly positive. So that's what I was saying, that CD4 is commonly positive. These ALCLs are more of CD4 T cell lymphomas, CD8 typically negative. Rare positive cases have been described. The neoplastic cells usually express HLA-DR positive for, so this is ALCL was the one that had CD25, not the AITL. So positive for CD25, although these markers are not specific. And then myeloid antigen expression is common, with CD13 being most commonly reported. 33 can be seen. Occasionally, CD15 has also been reported. So myeloid antigen expression can be seen in ALCL. Recognition of this phenomena is critical for myeloid sarcoma and acute leukemias. Myeloid antigen expression appears to be more commonly in the ALK1 positive ALCL. Although some strands have been reported, antigen expression is otherwise similar between ALK positive and ALK negative. One group has reported successful analysis of ALK1 protein by flow cytometry and good concordance by IHC. However, flow cytometry ALK1 is not reliable, and you should do the IHC. And also and then ALK negative will be poor prognosis. So again, mature T cell lymphoma expressing CD30 and 45, CD2 consistently expressed, variable expression of 4, frequent loss of 3, 5, and 7. Myeloid antigens can be present, and subset will be harboring translocation, leading to overexpression of ALK1. And ALK1 positive ALCL is typically seen in the younger patient with associated improved overall survival. Myeloid antigen expression is more common in ALK positive. And then morphologic and clinical correlation is required. Coming to the last topic for today, peripheral T cell lymphoma. So again, PTCL is again another CD4 positive T cell lymphoma with a downregulation of various markers. So basically, CD7 is usually downregulated in these. It's more of alpha beta type, so that's why they are showing this A and H is more of alpha beta. And so over here we see a CD5 positive population that is so showing some downregulation of CD3, there is downregulation of CD7, CD2 positive, it's CD4 positive, CD8 negative, and then the alpha beta. So that's that. So over here, the PTCL, they are saying 68-year-old woman with 15-pound weight loss, fever. An examination shown to have palpable cervical, axillary, and inguinal lymphadenopathy. So all plot except lower right plot show all viable cells. The lower right plot shows all T cells. The CD45 versus side scatter shows predominantly lymphoid cells. And so basically they are in the lymphoid gate. Normal T cell bright positive, CD3 is, so normal CD3 bright positive T cells are highlighted in green and red. So those are your normal T cells. These have indicated expression of CD4 and CD8 both, and then respectively. An abnormal population with intermediate forward scatter is highlighted in aqua, so intermediate forward scatter. And this population expresses low surface CD3 with bright 2 and bright 5. And this population expresses CD4 without CD8, lacks the expression of 30 and 56, that's not shown. And abnormal population lacks the expression of CD7. The plot on the lower right depicts the expression of TCR receptor, that is beta chains, and approximately 70% of the TCR region beta chain repertoire is expressed in the expression of AHFITC or AHPE from the Beckman Coulter. The population of interest lacks the expression of all represented TCR variable beta chains, suggesting clonality. Concurrent T cell receptor gamma chain rearrangement are demonstrated in a clonal T cell population, and morphology of lymph node demonstrated findings with PTCL. So PTCL NOS is heterogeneous category encompassing the PTCL that do not fall under any specific category of T cell neoplasia. So they should be kind of a diagnosis of exclusion. And then the neoplasms typically occur in adults, comprise of 30% PTCL in the Western countries. As these neoplasms will be associated with inflammatory infiltrate, so there will be a background histiocyte, small lymphocytes, eosinophils sometimes noted, and that can obscure the IHC evaluation. So flow is important. PTCL is neoplasm composed of mature T cells, although an aberrant immunophenotype has been demonstrated in majority of the cells. No specific aberrant immunophenotype has been described. So basically, there can be variable loss of pan-T cell markers, including 2, 3, 5, and 7. And then aberrant expression of 2 or more markers is described in most of the cases. CD7 frequently described as aberrantly expressed, that will be aberrantly decreased or absent, followed by CD5 that will be aberrantly decreased or absent. CD3 frequently noted to be expressed. I'm getting a call here. Okay. So CD3 is, however, present in cytoplasm in most cases and usually positive for IHC. CD2 is at least frequently shown to be aberrantly expressed. CD4 expression is more common than CD8, and that's we already know. CD30 can be seen in some subset. So that's about peripheral T cell. So again, this is a particular, can be follicular, P follicular variant, and that's why a differential diagnosis with AITL. And CD56 is rare. Aberrant expression of the B cell antigens 20 and 79A can be reported. So that's about PTCL. So no specific, like there will be aberrant immunophenotype, again 2, 3, 5, 7 loss can be seen. And like no specific, like it should be the other T cell lymphoma should be excluded before making the diagnosis of PTCL. That's about your T cell lymphomas. And now we are ready for our cases. I think we'll be, I would say that read the cases, it is in the drive. The cases for tomorrow and day after tomorrow, Raji has already placed in the drive. And you guys look at the cases beforehand. If Raji has time to go over them tomorrow and day after tomorrow, she probably might go separately. Let's see how it works. And but be prepared for the cases, okay?
Can you send it? It is there in that WhatsApp, no, the drive thing, because I
will send the link for the cases tomorrow, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys. I'll see what the call was about, and I'll go. All right. Was it? I mean, I think it was a okay session. It was not completely an express. It was semi-express today.
Thank you.
But
Thank you so much.
needs a lot of energy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. All right. Thanks for joining. Thank you for teaching me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.